Hello and welcome. I'm Kristian Salinas, the Artistic and Executive Director of QFest 2021, the Houston 25th Annual LGBTQ International Film Festival. Today, we are hosting a panel in honor of our 20th anniversary screening of The Wedding Video, which premiered here in Houston back in 2001 when QFest was known as the Houston Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. And it showcased at the Rice Media Center, which also is no more. It was just demolished this year. So this is quite a special reunion. We got a remarkable assortment of cast members from the real world. And first, before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor, of course, is our presenting sponsor, Homelight, our major funder, the John Stephen Kellett Foundation, our program sponsors, the Hollyfield Foundation, and the Houston Arts Alliance. I'd also like to thank our media sponsors, Spectrum South and Houston Media Source, who is helping us put on this panel today. So it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Dan Renzi, who will be moderating this panel. Dan is someone that I haven't seen in quite some time, so I'm glad to see your beautiful smiling face. And certainly everybody else who was present at that screening and everyone who is here to recognize the 20th anniversary. So Dan, I hand it off to you.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hi, Dan.
How are we doing today?
Good.
We're going to go around. I know most of you. There's a few of you, Julie, that I've wanted to meet ever since I was in high school, so I'm holding it together. But we're going to get to that in a little bit. If we could just go around and everyone introduce themselves and say where you are right now. And I'm on my screen. We have Lars in the upper left.
All right, I'll start. Lars from Real World London, and I currently live in Los Angeles.
You do? Where in Los Angeles do you live?
Downtown in the Arts District.
Fantastic. Very cool. Very cool. Who's next? How about Mike?
Oh, hi, I'm Mike. I happen to be Dan's old roommate from the 5th season in Miami, and I am currently in Atlantic Beach, Florida.
Fantastic. And then how about we go over to, I see Cory looking gorgeous.
Hey, Dan.
Oh, hi.
Cory, I was on Real World San Francisco, and I'm living in Long Beach.
Living in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And how about we go down, or we go up to, on my screen, we have Norm. Norm, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for doing this. And I want to thank the QFest for bringing us back. It's just such a pleasure. And it's so great to see all your faces. I wish we were all in the same room. I'm living in Michigan now. I've moved back to my hometown in Ironwood, Michigan. And I'm just excited to be here. I have a thunderstorm coming in, so hopefully I won't lose power.
All right. So, Clint, could you introduce yourself, please? Because were you on the Real World, Clint?
No. Hi, Dan. Thanks again for moderating this. And thank you, Kristian, for having us back. I'm splitting my time. I was not on the Real World, but I co-directed with the lovely Norman Korpi back in the day and attended the festival. I'm splitting my time here between West Hollywood and Joshua Tree.
We've had such a build-up. We've had such a build-up to the final guest in the panel. So exciting.
Syrus.
So exciting to meet the one and only Julie. Yay! This is a big deal.
I hope I don't disappoint you.
Oh, never. No, Mike's here, so he's got that covered. So, no, but Julie, I've wanted to meet you since I was in high school, and you and Norm were like my best friends when I was a scrawny gayling in Overland Park, Kansas by myself, dreaming of being in the loft with you guys. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. It has been 20 years since this movie has been made. And, everyone at this point has a camera on their phones and anyone can make a YouTube video. But back in the day, making a movie was a pretty big deal, even if it was just an independent film that you're making with your friends. So how exciting is it to look back 20 years and remember this project that you guys did, that it still has it's coming back to life along with all the reunions of the Real World cast that are being brought back as well?
It's amazing, and it really was a difficult feat for us. Building up to the wedding video, you know, we wanted to shoot on film, and it was so cost prohibitive. You know, we had so many different iterations of what we're going to do. We were going to do like a snuff film. We had all these different casts. We want to thank you, Dan, because we actually moved into the castle because you were going to move in that castle, and then you moved away. And so you shared it to us. You know, like you brought it to me and Rachel.
Explain what happened here. So, and if I can, a friend of mine had worked for an architect, and she was helping him rent out what was honestly it's in Beverly Hills, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah.
Beverly Hills. It's a house it was built like a castle. It's a really bizarre, beautiful house. And we were all thinking of moving in there, and it ended up being a bunch of, because those are the people that I knew at the time. I knew Norm from the real world New York, and I knew Rachel from the real world San Francisco. Yeah. And one by one, Mike ended up moving in there, and all these people ended up moving in the house, and there ended up being no room for me. So I didn't get to move in, which I appreciated. And then everyone was in your movie except for me. I'm the only person that was not in the movie. So I appreciate that too. I'm glad you had so much fun. That's great. But so you ended up making this movie. Where did you get the idea to make a movie?
Okay, so well, the idea kind of came from, you know, actually we went to Rachel and Sean's wedding, which kind of was a little bit of a shotgun wedding. And I think Mike came with me to that, and Jacinda and a few people. And it was pretty much just slapped together. Rachel was about to be on The View, and she's like, Norm, can you just film this whole thing? And it wound up being like a disaster. And I needed to edit the tape before Barbara Walters saw it, because there was like Rachel's face in the cake, and families were fighting. And it just wasn't really anything good to put on ABC on Monday. And, you know, so we shot this whole thing on Sunday, and she was, you know, it was just like the wedding was all jumped together. You know, they were having their baby a little early. And so there was a lot of stress there. And so, you know, the takeaway from that was like, there could actually be something here as far as a movie, is like this whole chaos going on, and then everything being edited away into something perfect.
So, you know, and back then, like I said earlier, making a movie back then was a much bigger deal. Like, you did not just pull your phone out and make a YouTube video. So like, what was involved back in, what was 2001, back at the turn of the century, of making a movie? I mean, you know, there's cameras and lighting and all sorts of stuff. It's not something you can just do on a whim.
Right. Clint, why don't you jump in?
Well, actually, Dan, you can. So, you know, Norman and I went and we bought a couple video cameras and figured it out. It was really awkward because it was the, you know, the last year when they were still using actual tape in the cameras. So we shot everything on mini DV. And then the following year after we shot, everything went to actual, you know, memory sticks that you would put on the cameras. So we had to manage all the tapes, and we just bought the cameras and read the instruction manuals as we were flying to wherever we were to start filming people, and figured it out as we went along.
They would show up at your house and pull the manual out.
All the time. We had no idea what we were doing.
Like, okay, well, how do you change the batteries? I mean, they literally had to figure all of this out. But they did. That was kind of the amazing part, was that they really did like get the equipment and figure this out and put the whole puzzle together.
Yeah.
In terms of your participation, like, you know, people at the time didn't really know, like the Hollywood industry didn't really know what to do with reality TV people, because we're not actors, we're not people who necessarily, I mean, people had talents besides being in a reality show, but we were sort of shopped around Hollywood, people didn't really know what to do with us. Like, are we actors? Are we not? Did any of you have any actual like improv? Like, I can tell you, I mean, my roommate Mike is very, very funny. And, you know, like, there's a certain comic timing that Mike has that is fantastic. But in terms of acting, you know, like, do any of you have like actual acting experience? Because this is all improv. I mean, it's a big project to improv your way through.
Julie?
I'm gonna guess no, that none of you.
No, we don't.
experience.
I mean,
that was a long silence.
For me, I think for me, Norm tried to make it real easy for me because he said, Lars, could you please play a conceited, arrogant German DJ? Really snobby at that, and it was like, it's going to be really hard to pull off. So
yeah, because in this movie, you play
because
people with your own names, but you are different characters than who you are in real life.
You know what I compare it to, honestly? If you look at, after we shot this, obviously, like Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David would have on people, and it wasn't scripted. What they did was like, here, this is the scene. This is what you need to do. Play your part. It's basically what Norm and Clint did is they came to all of us and said, hey, here's your part. This is what we're looking for in this scene. Do your thing. If we like it, we'll use it. If not, we'll cut it.
Wonderful. Well, and when you're back in 2001, people, I think if they're, especially a younger generation, they don't understand that a same gender wedding back then was a much bigger deal than it is now. And so did you have any nerves at the time about being in a movie about what was kind of a taboo subject? Or, do you sort of look back now and sort of, think it was all overblown? Or, do you understand at the time it was actually a pretty touchy subject to talk about on film?
It's so interesting that I guess I don't, no, I didn't have any hesitation. Anything that Clint and Norman were doing, I would want to be a part of and excited to be a part of. But it has been funny explaining to my kids. My son is 20 years old. And my daughter is 17. And explaining to them, like, they don't really get why this movie would be anything because, today, they're like, why would this have been such a big deal? And so it's really difficult to put into words just how taboo it was and how cutting edge it really was and how forward thinking it was and how much it did really push the conversation forward.
Because there was a scene in the movie when the wedding coordinators were taking it back that it was a wedding with two men. Now, wedding coordinators would love to have weddings between two men because they know the budgets are going to be lavish, it's going to be fabulous, and all the stereotypes that go along with it, right. Some of which are true. But I think also, Julie, I'm wondering if some of that was also came from your growth of being on The Real World itself, that I don't, like having seen some of the conversations, because I've watched The Real World original New York season like 20 times and know probably more lines that you said than you remember. But there's a lot of just growth about learning about just basic diversity and learning about these political issues. That, do you think that even being on The Real World sort of opened your eyes to some of these topics?
Oh, yeah, I do think that it opened my eyes to the importance of the topics, but also, I'm just really close with Norman and really always, I'm saying, even if it's not something political, I'm going to support him. Any of his artistic endeavors, I want to be supportive of. And so, I love that this is what the topic was, but, I've got his back no matter what he's doing.
Oh.
Do you remember filming any of, back to everybody else, do you remember any of the moments that you thought were particularly fun or your favorite moments?
The hayride.
The dildo scene with Heather.
Oh.
Where is Heather?
That was fun. I feel like we kept wanting to redo that one too. We go, oh, no, let's do it one more time.
Too bad for everyone who wasn't in that scene, because everyone's like, and Lars is like, oh darn it, I missed the dildo scene. Too bad. What about any other besides the dildo scene? Any other favorites?
I remember the hayride. I think Kirby was in that, and Pam, if I'm not mistaken. But we did a hayride.
Yeah.
And I think we all got pretty liquored up before that. Yeah. And I forget, I know it's up in the canyon somewhere, but I do remember that being pretty fun. And obviously a lot of the stuff we shot at the house because that's where we lived. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff blends in because, like Cory, a lot of the people that were in the film were also our friends besides that, so that we would have a lot of stuff going on at the house. So some of it kind of bled into the others where I don't remember if it was filming or just partying. But I do remember hanging out with Cory in the pool, but I think that was for the film. So, well, I think it was in it as well. I don't have to go back and watch it, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Nothing naughty.
Nothing naughty. Well, so what are you? What is everybody up to now? Cory, what are you doing these days?
Well, first of all, I just want to say back to like being a part of it and kind of piggybacking on what Julie said, and what you said, it is so interesting that then it was so cutting edge, not just the concept of this idea of how we edit ourselves on social media, which Norman and Clint were so, I don't know, visionary in seeing that. And I feel like now everybody just does it every day on social media. We all just sort of edit ourselves. And I've recently just kind of stopped because I just get tired of wondering, you know, what else is going on in people's lives besides just the cute picture that they posted or whatever. And I think that just that concept itself was so cutting edge. And then the whole idea of, like Julie said, you know, this marriage between two men, which now would just be, like you said, Dan, so much fun for somebody to get to coordinate and so much fun to get to air on television. But at the time, it was a really big deal. And I think seeing Sean and Pedro have their little ceremony in San Francisco.
It's Syrus.
So, like for me, that was also just eye-opening to see that and to really know. It was eye-opening. And then to be a part of this, just making it more mainstream and making it more talked about and making people more aware. And now we see that, you know, it's not a shock, but back then it really was. And I think what Clint and Norm were doing, and I think just what I was able to experience in San Francisco with Sean and Pedro was, it was a big part of my life and really impacted me and changed me in a lot of ways. Now I'm a middle school teacher. And
I remember when I met you, Cory, the first time, and I was taken aback by how confident and how just big your personality was, because when you were on The Real World in San Francisco, a lot of your story was that you were one of the shyer, you know, house members, and you made comments that you wish you had culture and that whatever, you wish you had a culture like the other housemates. And when I met you, I was like, this is not the Cory that was on the show. This Cory, you had this big smile and you were full of energy and you were so much fun. And I thought it's the same thing that I was saying with Julie, like, what a growth process that this show must have been for you, because you just seemed like you had just come leaps and bounds. And people, when they watch reality shows now, I think sometimes they miss the point of what these shows were once upon a time. It was much more educational and exploratory. And, you know, and I think of the Miami season, we were sort of the turning point where we sort of delved into some terrible behavior, and I was responsible for a lot of that, but so I apologize. But you know, back then, topics like, you know, a same gender wedding, I'm not even gonna say same sex anymore, we got to use the right terminology. I mean, these were things that were done very much on purpose to not only educate ourselves as a cast member, but educate the people who were watching the show. And is that Syrus that I see on my screen?
Syrus.
Hello.
Is that a doo-doo drum?
So fashionably late as always. How are you, Syrus?
Plane was delayed as usual, but I'm here. My Wi-Fi wasn't working at all.
Oh. Well, we're glad that you're here. We're talking about the wedding video and what the experience of filming it back then, the experience of in 20 years ago, the perspective of how it felt different to be a part of a project back then versus, you know, now it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. How did you feel? Like, were you ever have any doubts about being in a movie about this topic, or what did you think at the time?
I thought my boy Norm contacted me and wanted me to be a part of something, and I thought I could not miss out on that, whatever it was. I trusted him. It's life. Let's do it.
Good.
But nowadays,
going in and out, Syrus.
I think it's a little different nowadays, but I think at the same time, I think when you're seeing something that the rest of the world may not be seeing, it doesn't always feel normal. But when you're in the moment, you know when it's right. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. So I got a lot of flack for the movie from my end a little bit. Heather B acting a fool, messing with me, smacking me in the head with that. I don't know if you guys remember that on the highway in my truck.
On the highway.
I got a lot of flack for that.
Really?
But at the same time, it was all in good fun and I had a blast.
Wow. Well, that's unfortunate that happened. Lars, you don't seem that if it doesn't seem like you come from a background where being in a movie about a gay wedding would have ever been a problem.
No,
the international DJ said they're generally somewhat understanding about LGBTQ culture.
I mean, I lived in Milan and then in Berlin in the early 90s. And this is sort of before I actually became a DJ. I was more of a club promoter back then. But I was still like figuring this whole music thing out. And the music I was listening to, which was like New York deep house, was really only played in gay clubs, you know? So back in 91, 92, 93, you know, before I became a touring DJ myself, probably half the clubs, if not more, I went to were gay clubs, you know? And it was like, you know, like Sunday afternoons, I'd go to the tea dance. That was just the thing, you know? And so—
Me too.
You know, and so when I then lived in London, what happened there, the biggest club in London was the Ministry of Sound, and the people who would headline Ministry of Sound on a Saturday, people like, I don't know, Masters at Work or, you know, DJs like that, on a Sunday, they would play a gay after hours party. And so it was a great way of seeing like a really big name DJ in a really intimate club, like in a club that only held like 300-400 people or whatever. And the first night I went, I remember speaking to Matt Kunitz, our production coordinator, like right before I left the house. And I said, "Are the cameras coming?" He goes, no, they told us we're not allowed because it's a gay club, because apparently there's, you know, a lot of celebrities who go who are still in the closet, blah, blah, blah. They weren't letting any cameras in. Well, guess what? I ended up going to the club every Sunday because it was like my way to escape the cameras.
Yeah, we had a place like that in Miami too. So, so Mike, have you been to do you know anyone else who's been married? Any gentlemen who've married each other?
Off the top of my head, no.
What do you have to tell us, Mike?
Well, no, I'm just trying to think. I mean, honestly, Dan's the one. I mean, when we started our Miami season, Dan's the one who kind of introduced me to the whole gay culture, because I didn't know what South Beach was.
Yeah.
I mean, remember the rainbow flag? I had
no that's what I was just gonna say. We went
no fucking idea what the rainbow flag was.
I wanted a job interview. I wanted a job interview to be a waiter at a restaurant that had drag performances, and they had a rainbow flag on the door. And we were trying to explain what the rainbow flag on the door meant to Mike, and he was just like, "What is that? That means that?" And he's, you know, standing there. And again, you know, it's, you know, I gripe about political correctness, because if on paper you had that conversation, someone would end up getting canceled by society. But when you have someone like Mike, who's just asking questions and learning about everything, and then just taking it in stride, like, I mean, that to me, it was just such a more honest reaction that meant something, rather than being politically correct. That was someone who was actually trying to be friendly and get along with people and learn something. And he was like, oh, okay, you know, and just not really sure what to say. But it's like, if you're not sure what to say, I mean, that's part of the process. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, and if I ever got married, Mike, I promise you would have an invitation, but that hasn't happened.
Oh my God.
So darn. But Mike, again, growth. We're all here to grow as humans.
Well, you know, you were like the first gay person I ever hung out with.
Probably the last.
I'm from in Florida, it's the Bible Belt. So then
I follow you on Facebook. I see your friends, Mike. I think I'm the only other gay person other than Norm that you've ever met. So
no, I got some gay friends, but then, you know, living with Norm, moving out to LA and living with Norm, I mean, I got immersed in this whole thing. And then there's the gay wedding video that I'm in, and
tell them about the rainbow flag. I used to put it like a magnetic one on Mike's car.
That's right.
You go driving around and you come back to the house so mad because everyone would be like checking Mike out. behind him. He couldn't figure out what was going on.
Actually, Norm, the one where you got me the worst was we were living in the castle and you came down to my room and you said, hey, Mike, we're going, I think it was Rage, was the bar in West Hollywood. You're like, come with me to Rage. I need a wingman. Come with me. I'm like, Norm, it's gay bar, but you know what? I'll go. So I put on all my Jacksonville Jaguar shirts and hat, like, trying to look as great as possible. And we walk in, and the first thing Norm says to me is, hey, man, look, if anybody gets you a drink, don't drink it. Make sure it's a beer. It's, it's got the lid on, everything. And I walk in, and every guy is trying to hit on me. And I'm like, Norm. He's like, yeah, the straighter you look, the more they want you. I was like, yeah, learn that.
It's a curse, Mike. I mean, it's just that raw sexuality that you've got, Mike. It's just like,
Mike.
I mean, just seeping in your pores. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's a curse. I mean, how do we all restrain ourselves? Well, listen, I mean, I was put on a very tight time schedule for this interview. We don't want to take too much of your time. But, Norm, your movie lives on. What do you have to say to people about wanting, why do you want people to watch this movie?
Well, in the movie, I mean, it is a little hidden gem, but it really served a purpose that I wanted to do, was to bring, new allies into the gay community, and through comedy, showing the audience that through these funny moments, these sophomoric moments, you learn something, about somebody, and then at the end you end up caring about them. It turns like a mother who won't come to a gay wedding, and once the editor edits everything down to this little 3-minute piece, there's her heart, and it's so interesting that actually the character arc in the movie is invisible. It's Clint's voice. It's so weird that you never see the character, you just hear the voice, and it's his sophomoric decision of all of this stuff, and he's trying to make this money, $10,000, and all of a sudden he does the right thing, and he says, I need to make something really nice, and even if it's going to not be the truth here, it's what this guy wants. And so that's kind of interesting, and it really touched upon issues. I wanted to set Sky up with being from Canada to show people that we didn't have the same rights. I couldn't just marry somebody with the same rights that everyone else had, and it gave people something to think about through comedy and through the real world. And all of you people, I just bless you all, because you have been that classic word allies right now. It seems to be the big buzz, but it's really true. I mean, people saw our lives and how we interact to help them move forward, and we have done such a huge service to our country, by including our voices. And I want to salute everybody and hug y'all.
Well, it has been a pleasure. It's the real world is being brought back. There's a whole what is it called, the OG movement. The OGs, they're bringing the old seasons back. Everyone on this screen who's in the real, I mean, Norm and Julie have already done it. The rest of us will be getting phone calls one way or another. Cory, have you been asked to do any challenges? No?
Nope.
Why not? You should call them. You seem tough. You can get out there and like pole wrestle or whatever, and they
Norm had the best
or like beat each
ever.
other up. You could do that.
Oh man,
Norm had the best quote ever.
I probably couldn't, but then I'm good. I think the
You're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think, with a lot of TV production being shut down, they started running reruns of shows, and it sort of reinvigorated interest in these old seasons. And so, a lot of us are going to be started getting dragged back, whether we like it or not. And so we have to, how do you feel about, Norm and Julie already did their reunion, but Lars and Cory and I know Syrus would like to do it, but how do you feel about going back in the house and going for round 2 of being on the real world again?
Well, I don't think it would take up 5 months the way it did back in 1995. So if it's only a week or two, Real World London actually did just a Zoom reunion in June of this year, and I think in June of last year. Sharon was actually the one who organized it, and so this year we were kind of talking about it, and I'd love to see everybody again. So if I have an opportunity to spend a week in London and hang out with my old friends or whatever, I'd be down for that. Or even better, if we could go back to Kenya for a week or two.
But do you feel like you have anything to say? I mean, back then, the conversations on camera were a lot different. Like, what do you feel like? Do you feel like we belong in front of cameras anymore? Or I mean, there's no other way to say it.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, the vast majority of people on reality TV do not belong in front of a camera. I mean, I don't watch any.
That's deep. That's deep.
Sorry, I don't watch any of that stuff. I've never watched a single episode of the Kardashians or any of that stuff, Housewives or any of these shows. I don't know, it just doesn't interest me. And I mean, I watched with Real World, I guess I watched your season, and then I think I watched Boston, and that was it. And then I stopped watching it. I haven't seen anything since then. So I don't know. So
yeah. Well, I love the Boston. I love them all.
And I will say, I think I was real kind of, I don't know if confused is the right word, but maybe concerned about why would we go back on television, and what do we bring to the table? What's the, what are we bringing that's different? And I kind of struggled with that. And then this interesting thing happened though with my daughter, where she was kind of, her and a girlfriend have had a little bit of a miscommunication, a little bit of a disagreement. And they really could not work out how to get past it. And she was like, I've texted her, but then she didn't respond. And I was like, you will have to go and actually talk to her and work past this. Even if you think you're right, or she thinks she's right, you have to learn how to get conflict resolution. Mm-hmm. And neither one of those girls had ever worked through a conflict with a friend. Mm. And so I think that is something that we bring to the table, that we, or my cast and the people you see on the screen, like, we are interested in what the other person has to say. And we do want to, like, how do you help these friendships grow and these real, all of these things. And so that's what we bring to the table. Yeah, that's why we should be on camera.
And your season was a lot better at that than ours. I mean, like, I can tell you, having lived, like, someone like Mike was a lot easier to live with than I was. And I mean, he's an infinitely nicer person than me, and I think that, sometimes on reality shows, we just scream at each other, and it is a learning process of, we're doing it in front of the camera, of learning how to work through conflicts. Yes. And some of the one of the biggest fights in real world history was from my mouth. And it's something that will haunt me, until it'll be on my gravestone. And you do have an opportunity going on these shows. I would like to go back and talk to my roommates, older and calmer and having less energy and more interest in what people have to say, and just, like, talk to each other like human beings, as opposed to just this energy of being on camera. Because back then, I mean, there were so many more conversations to be having, like, whether it be same gender marriage, or, the racial and ethnic conflicts that will always be part of our society, that will always be part of our lives. The conversations that between you and Kevin on the street, when you're pushing each other and shouting at each other, that could have happened today, and probably does happen today. And so these conversations, if they aired, were perhaps more relevant. And I would hope that if we went back, for the Miami season, that maybe we would just be a little nicer to each other. And I don't know. Cory, would you do it?
I'd love to do that and go back and just, I think with the perspective we have now, you can look at it differently than, like, a 19-year-old girl making a decision. I mean, the thing with me is, like, I look at Pedro, I look at some people in that house, and they're, like, out there changing the world. And I'm a clueless 19-year-old and didn't, like, completely understand. And I mean, I did. And of course I did more as time went on and as relationships built and changed. But I think it would be nice to be able to look at it from the perspective of now and talk to people from the perspective of now. And maybe, you know, just, I think with our group, it would still be tense.
It would be tense, and also wonder, I mean, with Pedro's no longer with us, and I don't even know if they would ask Puck, because he's had such a troubled time. And I really like Puck, but I know that he's had some problems. And so I don't know if they would even have him back, you know, so I think it'd be hard to have a whole cast back. And then, you know, who knows?
Yeah, so that's.
I do have to tell you, if they do call you, you've got to do a 700-page questionnaire, and then you got to get analyzed by a psychologist, so you're not going to shoot somebody on camera. And it takes up 2 days.
And you have to go through that sex education course.
And you got to go through the STDs in case you're going to screw somebody.
Yeah, I know they have there's an STD awareness class that you have to go through. And if the Boston cast was to ever do something, Cyrus's roommate Camila is now an OBGYN. I mean, she literally is an obstetrician gynecologist, and they're still going to make her go through a sex education class.
You gotta watch the videos with them watching you watch the videos.
Yeah. Cyrus, I mean, I know that on a personal note, I happen to know Cyrus was very enthusiastic about doing a reunion. If they were to mix cast Cyrus and bring you back and throw you into another cast, which cast would you want to be in for a reunion?
I mean, that's a no-brainer. I would be in freaking Miami, bro.
Woo, yes.
I'm there right now, actually. I'm in Miami right now. So
you are?
Where are you?
I just flew in. I told you my flight was late. And
I know. But like where, I mean, in what building, like where in Miami are you?
I'm in South Beach at the Shelbourne. I really just got checked in. My bench is still over there. We're doing a tasting for my wedding out here. Coming up.
Wedding?
You getting married?
Yes.
Congratulations, Cyrus.
Thank you, guys.
Wait, I'm gonna cry.
Birthday party when you get married.
You need a videographer? Clint, are you available?
Baby's all grown up.
Yeah, my rate's gone up significantly since we did this movie, but
he knows how to work the equipment now. After reading the instructions in Julie's living room, he understands how to work the camera. It's great.
Cyrus will only hire you, Clint, if you shoot a mini DV.
Oh, okay. Well, congrats, Cyrus.
All right. Well, listen, I mean, we have to wrap this up. It has been, like I said earlier, it has been a pleasure. I hope I see all of you in real life someday if COVID would end. Speaking as a registered nurse that I am in real life, I am so tired of COVID, and I cannot wait for us to be able to walk outside without masks on and all this social distancing, and we can just go back to having fun and doing these crazy projects that we get thrown into. But I thank you all very much, and thank you for being in a movie about gay marriage in 2001, because I can tell you, having watched the movie just as a spectator, because Norm did not ask me to be in the movie.
Wow.
Having just been a spectator, it was a thrill watching it. And I was very happy to see all of you being a part of it. And it made a difference, at least to me. It made me feel better about it. So I'm one person, but it definitely had the effect that you would want something like that to have. So thank you very much. And I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you very much.
I was late.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Kristian.
See the wedding video online.
September 30th through October 4th. Thank you.